Joe Heskett, Coach Heskett, new appointed coach of youth wrestling, Owl Wrestling, locally here to the Central Ohio area. Tell me what somebody of your caliber is doing coaching youth wrestling.
Well, I don't think it's about a caliber thing. I think it's about a passion thing more than anything. I mean, I've been very fortunate in this sport to see, the highest level from a coaching standpoint, from a competitive standpoint. But at the end of the day, it's an opportunity. I got a little 9-year-old knucklehead who's really loving the sport. It took him a while, which I never forced him, but he's kind of found a love for it. And he's a hard worker, so it's been a lot of fun to watch him progress throughout the years and just kind of start to find a passion for the sport naturally. And I talked to him about it a little bit. And he's like, that'd be awesome. And I have some other relationships around the area with some youth wrestlers, and it just made sense, But at this standpoint, it's not really about me. It's actually a much bigger picture for me, because this sport is so tricky and there's such a developmental process that goes along with it. I think it's just a great opportunity for me to get involved with youth wrestling, really help these young men and women understand the progression of this sport, and how the first few years, especially between 6 and 11 years old, the primary focus should be fun. And I have a pretty good system when it comes to teaching fundamentals through understanding. My philosophy is understand the sport. So whether you're 6 years old or 25 years old training for the Olympics, what are we doing with our hands? What are we doing with our head? What are we doing with our footwork? How do we break those things down into really micro details to ensure that we're putting out the best wrestling product we can?
So you've gone into a little bit of detail there, but you kind of glanced over the fact of your philosophy. That's a good segue into H leadership and what you're doing also on the side, still in the sport of wrestling, but maybe at a bigger picture. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so you mentioned H wrestling, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so H wrestling is when I got out of college wrestling, and I was an AD for a little while, a senior level AD at West Virginia University, but then I wanted to do my own thing. I saw some things and we can talk about this later, but in the sports world where I wasn't very impressed with the commitment to the student athlete. So part of me said, do it on my own. And I've been very fortunate to get H wrestling going. And really what I do is I work with small groups. I don't really want the real big groups right now. Now with the Owls, the youth wrestling, we're probably going to have, kind of big group in here. But my niche is small groups so that we can focus on that understanding component. And it's really what's missing in sport, is teaching these kids how to really understand the details of whatever sport it is. Football, soccer, wrestling, basketball. It's the little finite details of why am I moving left? Where's my balance? Where's my positioning? What's the pressure? I'm telling you, I've been doing this for a real long time, and there's a thirst for these kids to know those things. These kids, this generation, even my generation before, not everybody wants to be told, just do it, right? They want, why am I doing it? And I don't want to feel like I'm being disrespectful as a kid asking that question, why? So my philosophy is understand the sport, and H wrestling, which is my kind of little wrestling developmental system. We take a lot of time to break that down, and I'm in a very unique position to do that, and to do that at a very high level.
Okay, great. I'm looking forward to getting into more conversation with you about that later for sure. But let's circle back to Owl Wrestling. Mm-hmm. Talk to the parents, first-time parent, maybe young kids, 5, 6, 8 years old, just coming out for the sport of wrestling, especially a wrestling mom.
Right.
We know what wrestling moms can be like sometimes, right? Having experienced it myself in my house, but I was new to the sport at one point. Talk to the parents that might be thinking about, what is this sport going to do for me?
Well, for you as a parent, it's probably going to give you a lot of stress, because you love your kiddos so much and you're watching them battle, right? You're watching them battle, but more importantly, what you're watching them do is you're watching them grow. You're watching them grow independently as individuals, as human beings. You're watching them figure out who they are and what they're about and what's important to them. Because this sport, unlike many sports, you can't hide. There's no standing out in left field and just waiting. You got to be ready to go. So as a parent, it's a process. But I think one of the most important things to understand is not all wrestling developmental systems are the same. And if you're and it's tough, because there's a lot of social pressure right now to get your kid in young and to have them competing. And most 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds, they're not ready to compete. They don't know what really competition is. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a small percentage that are ready for that, but they're the rare exception, right? The large majority of youth wrestlers, they need to start to understand who they are, what they're about, what competition is. A lot of these kids are 7, 8, 9 years old. They can't even tell you how the scoring system works, right? So I think one of the things from a youth wrestling standpoint is just slow it down, and from a parent standpoint, be aware of the importance of slowing it down. right? Be aware of the importance of just making sure these kids are having a ton of fun, because really when it counts, your middle school years, your high school years, that's what we're really preparing them for, because at that point, these young men and women, they know what they want. They understand how to self-reflect and break things down. So, you know, that's probably one of the biggest messages I can tell for a parent is buckle up, because it's a journey, it's a ride, but it's not your ride as a parent. Your role is to support, step back, enjoy the process, put your young man or your child in the hands of a coach that can really work on developing them. And really, again, I think our sport is a little bit over-focused on a competition standpoint for youth. And that's something that, you know, we're going to look at here at Central Ohio, and we're going to focus on having more fun, because it's way too hard of a sport. The burnout rates are way too high, and these kids deserve more from us as coaches, not to put that pressure on them to compete when they don't really understand all of that entails, because they just don't have the maturity to do it.
Well, I got to tell you, man, that your passion is one thing that just exudes right here on camera, and obviously you're going to bring that to the mat. Your reputation is stellar, and you know, honestly, Central Ohio doesn't even know what they have in you. So I want to say, on behalf of everybody at Central Ohio Wrestling, thank you for giving back to the sport. Thank you for continuing to give back to the sport. I know sky's the limit with you, and I look forward to having them.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate interviews like this just to get the word out, because you know, I don't do a whole lot of promotion and all that type of stuff, nor do I, you know, is that my intent? Because this isn't about me. I have a gift. I've been blessed to see a lot of different things in this sport, but at the end of the day, how can we impact lives? And this is what this journey is all about.
All right. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.